Hello guys, welcome to the Med Concepts with Bhavya, and today we are going to go through the second part of the ulnar bone video series. And in this video we are going to talk about the features of the ulnar bone. So without any delay, let's get into the video. So in this video, as in every feature video, we would be talking about the features of the ulnar bone, and in this we would be seeing the features part by part, that is the upper end, the shaft, and the lower end. Okay, so let's get started with the upper end. So the first thing that we need to remember in the upper end of the ulnar bone is it presents two processes and two notches. So let's go into further details of these processes and notches. Now talking about the processes, we have two processes as I already mentioned. The first one is your Olecranon process, that is this one, the Olecranon process, and the second one is your Coronoid process. So the Olecranon process and the Coronoid process. Now let's go into the detail of each process. Now let's have a close look on the Olecranon process, that is this part. The Olecranon process has 5 surfaces, which is the anterior surface, the posterior surface, the medial surface, the lateral surface, and the superior surface. So anterior surface, posterior surface, then if this side if we see the medial surface, the lateral surface, and this part is your superior surface. Now talking about the anterior surface of the Olecranon process, that is this one. The anterior surface of the Olecranon process is an articular part. By articular part, I mean that it articulates with the elbow joint. It articulates with the humerus to form the elbow joint. Okay, that is why it is one of the articular part. And the upper part, that is this part. The upper part, this one, the upper part is forming the trochlear notch. So we have to remember two things when we talk about the anterior surface of the Olecranon process. The first one is it is an articular part. If they ask you why, then you have to tell because it articulates with the humerus to form the elbow joint, and the upper part of the anterior surface, that is this part, that is upper portion, it forms the trochlear notch. Now let's turn to the posterior surface, and when we see the posterior surface, the first thing that we will notice, see, this is the posterior surface of the ulna, of the ulna's Olecranon process. Okay, so Olecranon process, posterior surface. Now we are talking about the features of it, which is it forms a triangular subcutaneous area. What do you mean by subcutaneous area? Is that you can feel it through your skin. Okay, if you try to feel it over your skin, you can feel it because it's just subcutaneous, that is just under your skin. So we have a triangular subcutaneous area in the posterior surface, and also if we see inferiorly, the posterior border continues with the posterior surface of the Olecranon process. So again, two things. The first is the triangular subcutaneous area, and another thing is the posterior border. This is the posterior border. The posterior border of ulna continues from the inferior part of the posterior surface of the Olecranon process. Now we are back again to the anterior aspect, and let's just turn to the medial side, that is this side. See, this is the medial side, right? So in the medial side, the medial surface is present of the Olecranon process. So the medial surface, you don't have to remember anything much. It's just that the medial surface of the Olecranon process continues with the medial surface of the shaft of the ulna. That's it. So the medial surface of the Olecranon process continues with the medial surface of the shaft of the ulna. That's it. And now if we turn to the lateral side, that is this side, it will be smooth when we touch it. See, if you have bone, I already told you multiple times, have bones with you. Otherwise, borrow it from your seniors or from your college library if they let you borrow bones. And please have it in your hands when you study for osteology. It will be better for your experience, and you will always remember the bones throughout your life. Okay, so the lateral surface is going to be smooth surface. And the other thing that you need to remember about the lateral surface of Olecranon process is that it continues with the posterior surface of the shaft of ulna inferiorly. So that is all about the lateral surface. Now let us talk about the superior surface. So if you see, this is the superior surface of the olecranon. You just have to remember nothing. You just have to remember the surfaces mostly because they don't have much of the features. You just have to remember the names of surfaces. But the one thing that you will see here is the posterior part of the superior surface is going to be a little rough. So it will have a roughened area. That is it. So we have talked about the olecranon process. Now let's talk about the coronoid process. So now let us talk about the coronoid process. That is this process. This process, that is this process. This is the coronoid process. Okay. So in coronoid process, we have 4 surfaces. That is the superior surface, that is this one. Like if you see inside, it is going to be the superior surface. The anterior surface that is present in the front, the lateral surface, and the medial surface. So you guys must be remembering, or you must be recalling very clearly that I told that anterior surface of olecranon process forms the upper part of the trochlear notch, right? So here in the coronoid process, the superior surface forms the lower part of the trochlear notch. Then let us talk about the anterior surface, which is gonna be this one. This triangle that I have made here, it is a roughened triangular area. Okay, this is gonna be the anterior surface of coronoid process, and it is triangular and rough, as I told you, roughened and triangular. If you touch it, you can feel that roughened part. And the lower part, that is, I have shaded it a bit, the lower part of the anterior surface forms your ulnar tuberosity. What? Ulnar tuberosity. Now talking about the third surface, that is the medial surface. The medial surface continues with the medial surface of the shaft of the ulna. The same thing as we saw in the olecranon process. So the medial surface of the coronoid process continues with the medial surface of the shaft of ulna. And now the last surface, that is the lateral surface. Talking about the lateral surface of the coronoid process, the lateral surface marks the radial notch, that is this part. This is called the radial notch. See, here the head of the radius gets articulated with the ulna to form the radio-ulnar joint. So that is all about the coronoid process. We are now done with 2 processes, and now we are going to go through the 2 notches of the upper end of the ulna. Now, talking about the notches, the 2 notches that we observe in the upper end are going to be the trochlear notch and the radial notch. So the trochlear notch is going to be present in the olecranon process area and the coronoid process area, and this trochlear notch gets articulated with the humerus bone to form the elbow joint. Whereas if we flip over to the lateral side, we see a rounded area, which I already told you just now, which is known as the radial notch, where the radial head gets articulated with the ulna and forms the superior radio-ulnar joint. So that is all about the upper end. Now let's go through the shaft. Now let us talk about the shaft, that is this part, the longest part of the bone, that is the shaft. In shaft, we will see 3 borders and 3 surfaces. Now talking about the borders, we have the lateral border, which is the sharpest border and which is also known as intraosseous border. Then we have the anterior border, this side, the anterior border which ends at the styloid process here, right? And then the last border that we see is backside, the posterior border, which starts at the subcutaneous triangular area, as I already told, and ends at the base of the styloid process. So we have 3 borders: the lateral border, which is the sharpest border, also known as intraosseous border, the anterior border, and the posterior border. Now let us talk about the surfaces. As I've already marked here with the marker for the ease of you while studying, there is 3 surfaces, that is the anterior surface, the posterior surface, and if we go this side, the medial surface. Now, the anterior surface is present between the intraosseous border, that is the lateral border, and the anterior border. Turning behind, that is in the posterior aspect, we have the posterior surface between the lateral or introitious border and the posterior border. This one is the posterior border, right? And then if we talk about the medial border, the medial surface, the medial surface is present between the anterior border and the posterior border. Okay, anterior border and the posterior border. So these are the three surfaces. See, when you mark it properly and when you read properly, it will be clear. Don't be confused and don't panic that you can't understand. We all cannot understand in one go. We have to keep practicing. We have to see the bone. We have to read the book. So just calm and believe yourself and then start studying. Okay. So now let's go through the lower end. We are done with the upper end. Yes, of course. The shaft. And now we are going to go through the lower end. Talking about the lower end, that is this part. The very important thing that you will notice here is going to be your styloid process. This styloid process is present posterior inferiorly, that is posteriorly and inferiorly. See, if you see like this, it's going to be like this is going to be the most inferior most part of the ulnar bone. So this is the styloid process which is present posteriorly and inferiorly. That is all that you see in the lower end. And one more thing that we want or we should talk about the styloid process is, see, ulna is the medial side of the forearm bone, right? And radials is the lateral side bone of the forearm. So ulna's styloid process would be present on the medial side, whereas radius styloid process would be present on the lateral side. Let me show you in my hand. So let's now take a view of my hand. I can't make sure to make you people see the bulge over here, but you can keep the finger over your bulges. That bulge itself is the styloid process. Okay, so if you see on the thumb side, that is on the lateral side, if you see there will be a bulge over here. You just have to bend it a little and then you can feel the bulge. Okay, so that bulge is gonna be the radius styloid process. And if you see this side, the ulnar bulge is very larger than the radius bulge. Okay, you can feel it very properly here. So if you bend it a little and if you try to feel it, there will be a bulge, and that bulge is going to be the ulnar styloid process. Okay, so this is going to be lateral side. You have radial styloid process, and in the in the little finger side, you will have the radius styloid process. So that is what I wanted to explain. I hope that is clear now. So hey guys, that is all about the features of the ulnar bone. Congratulations, we are done with another part of the ulnar bone series and we are slowly moving to the lower limb bones now. I am very excited about them. Are you excited about them? You must be, because hip bone is really very interesting. The femur is the largest bone and all that. So let's continue with the third part of the series of ulnar bone in the next video. Until then, stay safe and stay home. Also, reminding you guys again, the notes would be uploaded on my Insta page as soon as I upload the video on YouTube. Also, if there is any doubt or any query, you can DM me on my Insta page or you can comment down here below and I will clear all your doubts. Okay, so stay safe, stay home. Also, the notes would be uploaded in Tele channel as well. Link is there in the description below for both my Insta as well as Tele page. So until the next video, bye bye, take care.